Hey, what's going on, everyone? Ryan again with rpkcustoms.com. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. This is not a lightsaber video, but it's still a movie prop video. This is a movie prop that I've been obsessed with almost as much as some of the lightsabers in my collection. Now, if you guys have scanned my channel at all, you'll see that my second video I ever made was of me heat treating a knife, and it was this knife right here. And you can see it's had some use. So this is a functional knife. Now, for those of you who don't know, this knife was used by Benicio del Toro in The Hunted. I believe the movie came out in 2003 or 4, somewhere around in there. Now, the movie came out when I was like 13 years old, so of course I was going to be hooked on that. It was about knife fighting, and it was just cool. Had Tommy Lee Jones, Benicio del Toro. Benicio del Toro used this knife in basically the beginning of the movie, and then towards the middle of the movie there was a flashback, and it showed him actually making the knife. So when I saw that scene, when Benicio del Toro was making that knife, that got me into making knives. I've been making knives almost as long as I've been making lightsabers. Of course, when I was 13 years old, I was really no good at it. This was the first one I ever made right here. So I made this when I was probably about 13 years old. And I knew nothing about making knives. So, of course, I just went to Home Depot and got the cheap weld steel that was in the hardware section, not knowing that you cannot heat treat this. This is always going to stay soft. There's not enough carbon in it to get hard at all. But it's just pretty cool. I think I used like plywood for the handle and then stained it. So this is a very rough knife. You can see the size difference. But man, when I was 13 years old and I first made this, I mean, I took this thing with me everywhere. I made a little leather holster for it and everything, and I carried this around. I mean, back when I was a kid, I pretty much lived in the woods, so I wasn't taking this to the grocery store or anything. But when I was outside messing around in the woods when I was a kid, this was always on my belt. Now, over the years, there was many iterations of this knife that I made. This is another one, and you can see that it's starting to get a little bit better. I made a couple that looked a lot like this, and again, these were made out of weld steel. Actually, no, I think this one was 01 tool steel. I made another one like this that was in weld steel, and that one it didn't get, I heat treated it, but it didn't get hard. So I made this one. The other one I gave to a friend. He was kind of fascinated that I was making knives back then. So I think I was chopping something, and the blade bent on it, and I just gave it to him. And you can see that the blade on this one is bent, maybe right there. I don't know if my camera's going to focus on that, but yeah, this one obviously did not get heat treated properly because back then I was heat treating everything with a campfire. And you can see here, this is one that I screwed up. Again, I'm like 13, 14 years old at this point. I was heat treating this in a campfire, and I had a hair dryer blowing on it to get it, up to temperature. Because when you heat treat something, you have to get the temperature of the steel up to like I think it's 1400 degrees. 1450, I think, is what I got it at with my forge. Now I built a forge later on, and that's what I heat treated this one with. But man, when I first started out, it was really rough. But it's pretty cool. I kept this because I don't know if you can see that, how well you can see that. You can see what heat treating does to metal. It kind of makes it crystallized, which is pretty cool. See if I can zoom in on it. I don't know if my camera's going to focus on that. You can kind of see it right there. But I just thought that was pretty cool. So I kept this around just as a, you know, a learning tool. I also made smaller ones. So this was a smaller one that I made. Again, keep in mind, I made this when I was like maybe 14, 15 at this point. So the original creator of this knife, his name was Dave Beck. And he made this knife. So the story goes, he made this knife for Tom Brown. Tom Brown is a wilderness tracker type guy. And when they made the movie, The Hunted, they got Tom Brown to come in because they were doing a lot of like tracking stuff in the movie. And they ended up just using this knife for basically just a stunt prop. So for the longest time, Dave Beck quit making these. He did not make these for almost like, I think it was like 15, 20 years, something like that. So the design was kind of fair game. There was a couple companies, or at least one company that was making a version of this and selling it. That company was Red Scorpion 6. They went under. I don't know, there's some drama that happened. Red Scorpion 6 went under, so those knives were no longer being produced. At the time Red Scorpion 6 was around, Facebook really wasn't a thing yet. So Red Scorpion 6 had a forum, and I frequented the forum because, of course, you know, I was obsessed with these knives. And that was really the only forum that was dedicated to the tracker knife. That's what these are called, is the tracker. I don't know why I'm showing the bad one. I should be showing this one. So I was on the forum, and I was sharing, you know, the knives that I was making as I was making them. And that caught the attention of the guy that ran the website, the forum. He actually called somehow he got my phone number. I don't know how he did it. He called the house, and, you know, I don't think he knew that I was, you know, 15, 16 at the time, and had a conversation with him. But we talked for a little bit, and he was extremely supportive of me making these knives, and, you know, basically told me, you know, you're doing a really good job, all that. And I started making them and selling them. Now these take a lot of work. I mean, especially, you know, if you're like 15, 16 years old. I was making these with hand files, and I actually made this one with a hand file. I made this one all with manual tools. So what I did is I strapped this onto a bench. It was a picnic table, and I just took a hand file and filed each one of these bevels by hand. It took a long time. I think I worked on this knife for, I think it was a little over a year, just off and on. It was kind of like a hobby, a project of mine. But I just wanted to see if I could do it the same way that they did it in the movie, and, you know, have it come out like it did in the movie. And I think it turned out really well. Now, I was lucky enough to find the guy that actually owns the knife that was in the movie. I'm not sure where he bought it from. I'm not sure where he found it or how he got it, but he had an Instagram account. So when I was building this, I was able to get a lot of photos that weren't really available to the public. Now, he took his Instagram account down. He made a post saying that he just was not happy being on Instagram, and he just wanted to be done with social media. I don't really blame him. So unfortunately, I've lost all those photos, but you know, he was also very supportive of this. I was trying to get this as close as I could to, well, so let's back up. There was, from what I can count, there was about 3 or 4 different versions of this knife made for the movie. You know, obviously the stunt props were they're fighting. I'm sure it's probably like some kind of a resin or rubber knife, just so that, you know, Tommy Lee Jones or Benicio del Toro doesn't get all cut up. Excluding those, you have one where the hunters are coming in and they're trying to track him and trying to kill Benicio del Toro, and he traps one of them and into a leg hold trap, and it's on a piece of paracord, which was kind of goofy. But Benicio del Toro comes up, cuts the paracord with the knife. So that was one version. I didn't see that version again in the movie. Then there's another version where Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones are fighting. And in one scene, they're on the ground. They're kind of struggling back and forth. And Benicio del Toro has the knife like this. There's a close-up shot of it. And you can see that it is a metal knife, or at least it appears to be a metal knife. I don't know if it's an actual knife, actual heat-treated knife or not, but it's got a sheen to it. You can just tell it's metal. So there's that one. There's one that he throws into a tree, which that one might be the same one that he cuts the rope with. I'm not really sure on that. And then there is the flashback scene knife where Benicio del Toro is actually making this. And in that scene, he takes this knife and he sets it on the table as a finished product. It looks kind of rough. I think they tried to make it look like it just came out of the forge or something. But I'm pretty sure that's the knife that the gentleman from Instagram had, the one that I found. So because I had the pictures from that knife, I tried to model it as close as I could to that specific knife. The other knives, there's different tells. The one that he puts on the table, it like I said, it looks kind of rough. And then I think they blued over it to prevent rust. So for those of you who don't know, this black color is just gun bluing, and it turns steel black. And you can see there's really no rust or anything on it except for right there. And that's because I was chopping a limb when I was on the road last year, 2 years ago now. And for those of you who don't know, I built out a camper van and I was traveling across the United States for almost a whole year. I think I was on the road for like 8 to 10 months, something like that. Spent a lot of time in Utah, Colorado, and I had this knife on me. I used it a lot. I used it to chop wood for campfires and stuff like that. That's why it looks kind of beat up. So this is not just a display item. This is an actual functioning knife. So now I'm going to start talking about the details of the knife, the materials I used. So for the steel itself, I used 01 tool steel. And that is the same steel that Dave Beck used for his tracker knives. I also used 01 tool steel because it's pretty easy to heat treat. You basically just heat this up to 1450 degrees, leave it in there to soak for, I think it was like 12 minutes. And then you dunk the knife into preheated oil. And I use vegetable oil when I heat treat. And if you watch that heat treating video that I made a couple years ago, you notice that when I dunk or quench the knife into the oil, that the oil actually catches on fire and comes up. So, it's heat treating is probably my favorite part of making a knife. Every other part it's very, very time consuming, but I still have all the tools, and I do still make knives occasionally from time to time. You can see I put my initials in it. Right there, RPK. So the handle material is, I went with, I think this is paper micarta. So there's about 3 or 4 different kinds of micarta. There's paper, linen, maybe there's 3. Paper, linen, and canvas. Paper micarta can be sanded to this really smooth texture or smooth finish. The canvas and the linen micarta has a texture to it. So, the canvas and linen micarta is better for when you're actually using a knife, because that texture gives a little bit more grip. Paper, if you smooth the paper micarta out, it can get pretty slick. especially if you're chopping something and your hand gets sweaty. You run the risk of the knife flying out of your hand. But since this little finger choil right here is there, that gives a little bit extra grip. I basically just used the paper micarta because I was trying to get it as close to the movie as possible. And then I just used brass pins to hold the handle on. I do have a sheath that I somewhat made for it. This is just a Kydex sheath. Holds it. I don't even have any rivets in it right now. It's just held together with one bolt and some paracord. But it works. I do have a leather sheath that I got for my Red Scorpion 6 knife because I did buy one of those. Ended up selling the Red Scorpion 6 knife off, but I kept the leather sheath for it. The button snapped off of that, so I'm going to have to sew that back on. And I don't have any leather tools, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But this knife was something that I wanted for a really long time. Being obsessed with this knife taught me how to make knives. And I'm really grateful that I have that knowledge. Not a lot of people know how to make knives. It's not really the biggest hobby in the world, but it is really cool to know how to do that. So there are a few people that I follow on Instagram that actually make these knives now. One of them, he completely took this design and revamped it, redesigned it, I guess, and made his own version of it. And that is the Dave Wenger. I believe he calls it what does he call it? I don't know if he calls it a tracker knife or WSK, because I know the Red Scorpion 6 knives, they called those the WSK or the Wilderness Survival Knife. No, I don't really know how many people are going to be watching this video because not a lot of people watch the heat treating video. But I'm assuming that probably half of the people that are going to be here watching this video are going to be the movie prop people, and then the other half are going to be the knife guys and bushcraft community. So my thoughts on this knife as a functional knife. This is kind of a controversial knife, or at least it used to be. This was a knife that you either loved or you absolutely hated. Some people think this looks absolutely atrocious and it's completely unusable. And they shit on it all the time. I kind of like the design of the blade. I don't like the design of the handle. I find this to be wildly uncomfortable when you're using it, mostly for this little finger grip area right here. I really don't like that. I feel like it looks cool. It looks really cool, but it gets in the way when you're using it more often than not. And that's the thing about Dave Wenger's knife. He completely took these little finger choils right here. He completely took those out, and instead he put a palm swell, which is 100 times more comfortable than what this is. As far as using the knife, chopping, it excels at chopping. So if you're out in the woods and you're trying to collect firewood or whatever, this is probably just as good as what a small hatchet would be in a smaller package. And it also makes really good feather sticks because of this curve right here. And if you are a movie prop guy, you don't know what a feather stick is, it's not important. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything else to cover on this. But this knife kind of satisfies both of my hobbies. I'm a big outdoors person. I love to camp. I love to fish. I love to hike. And I'm going to be leaving for a road trip. I'm going to be driving from Michigan all the way down to Florida for a wedding. And I always pack my camping bag, my camping gear, and this knife is always in it. So I figured since I was already packing my camping gear anyway, and I ran across this knife, I wanted to make a quick video to go over it since I've never really given any updates since that heat treating video. But anyways, I appreciate you guys watching this, and I will be back with another video soon enough. Thanks, guys. May the force be with you.